back, everybody, and happy Wednesday. It is time for episode number 4 of Mental Health Sounds Like This, Real Talk with Emoji and Ra. This is, again, episode 4, and I'm super excited for today's episode because we are, drum roll, please. Thank you, Ra. Thank you.
That was awful. I was like, I don't have anything to drum on.
We are, well, first of all, I've finally finalized the official date of my upcoming book, Mental Health Sounds Like This, which, is super exciting for me and I hope for my readers as well. But it also means that, all of these conversations that we're having leading up to this book release, I don't know, they're taking on a whole other sort of level of meaning for me because this is what it's all about, right? It's about talking to other experts and, just beautiful humans who are in the same kind of world that we are in when it comes to helping others help themselves, and when it comes to our emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical strength and wonderfulness and confidence and capacity. And today's episode is with my neighbor from, like, I don't know, somewhere across the street, Lauren Roche. But I'm super excited for today's episode. How are you doing, Ra? Talk to me.
I'm great. I'm excited to be here, excited to have this conversation with Lauren. I don't know Lauren, so I'm excited to get to know her more in this episode and just actually see more about the work that she's doing, because as you mentioned, it's really aligned with the work that you and I do. And I think it's so important to have these conversations and really normalize what it's like to, be navigating your mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health and what that looks like, given that, 1 in 2 people experience loneliness. And that to me is such a huge epidemic. And so, Thank you, Lauren, for joining us.
Yes, welcome, Lauren. The crowd goes wild. Woo! Okay. Awesome. Well, it's wonderful to have you here. I don't know Lauren either. We are neighbors technically. You're over in Washington, D.C., and I'm literally 2 streets over in Chevy Chase, Maryland. But are you from D.C. originally?
I'm from Maryland originally, Howard County.
From Howard County. Okay, cool. And I'm intrigued by you because you have your journey into, you have a podcast, The Naked Truth. And this podcast is very much kind of a combination of, dope conversations with people, but really high performing people as well. You talk about everything from strength to resilience to mental health. What got you into doing this kind of work, especially considering your background working with Deloitte historically?
Yeah.
I should put that as an asterisk, like she recently quit. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I quit in February. I took a chance on myself and the podcast and the business. And I'm just kind of like living out my purpose. So I guess taking it back, I've had my own experience with mental illness and struggling. And I know close friends and family who have had similar experiences. And I have felt alone in my struggles in the past. And I want to build a community that talks openly about tough feelings and normalizes mental health and works towards a world where mental health and physical health are treated equally. Because as we all know, there's a stigma kind of around mental health. And while it's improved over the years, there's still work to be done. But I want to help people relate to one another and like combat the loneliness epidemic, Ra, that you were talking about. So it originally started when I was going through an episode of depression in 2022. And I found a new therapist, started doing a lot of self-development work, and then started posting content on Instagram. I've always been kind of like a creative person. So I started posting motivational and inspirational content on Instagram for myself to boost my own mood and inspire myself. And then that quickly spread to like spreading positivity and inspiration to others as well, and kind of putting a positive spin on people's feeds, because a lot of the time on social media, as we know, you can get down in the dumps comparing yourself to others, or you can follow like news that tends to focus on the negative information. So kind of trying to bring that positivity and motivation to like society as a whole, I guess. And then during my day job at Deloitte, I was a product designer and I was doing a lot of user research, user interviews, and I found that I really liked that work and I really liked facilitating meaningful conversations with others. And so, and I listened to podcasts at the time. I know the industry has been growing. I love to yap. So, and I love to connect with people. So I was like, why not create one of my own? And then it turned into my podcast, The Naked Truth with Lauren. And it's kind of fulfilling my purpose, which I journaled about a long time ago. I kind of like figured out my life purpose, which was to enhance the mental health of society as a whole.
Beautiful. I love hearing how like your purpose, and this is quite typical with a lot of people who I know who are living in their purpose, it's kind of stemmed from your own personal experience and then overcoming that and really wanting to support other people through that process. So I love hearing that, like, that's where it's come from, because there is truth and there's authenticity and there's like a really grounded approach about it, like especially when you are creating in that way. What has been some of the feedback that you've gotten from like the people who listen to your podcast and even the people who perhaps follow you, from what it is that you share? Like, what have people kind of said to you so far?
That's a really good question. I've gotten feedback like, thank you for sharing, or thank you for being so vulnerable, or your guest was so vulnerable. It was so powerful. I've gotten feedback like, I know someone or one of my loved ones, and I don't know what I can address because sometimes I put trigger warnings on my content.
Important, I'm just saying, yeah.
Yeah, so they have talked about like knowing someone who has attempted suicide and thanking me for putting it out there, like conversations, because honestly, a lot of my interviews, there has been mention of suicide or suicide ideation, and it's so prevalent in today's society. And like before my time, when there was more of a stigma around mental health, like people older than me that listen are like, wow, this is refreshing, because in my time growing up, like this didn't exist, and I appreciate the openness and the vulnerability. And then people my age have been like, wow, that was a really powerful conversation, or this inspired me to do some introspection and kind of work on myself.
I love that. I love that. It's as I'm listening to you. So Ra and I both hail from New Zealand originally, and she's now in Canada. I live in Washington D.C. Or Chevy Chase. And one of the things that I was really touched by when I was growing up and deciding to do the work that I'm doing as an empowerment through vocal coach and empowerment through songwriting coach is the huge risk that surprisingly middle-aged folk were struggling with when it came to mental health, as opposed to just young people, right? I think we have this idea or this concept that goes around, society that, that mental health only affects one demographic or one specific part of society that we kind of try to gloss over for whatever reason and just kind of move on through. But one of the things that I seem to gather from what the conversations you're having is that you're talking to a plethora of such a wide range of humans that excel at life, that excel in their careers, excel in their family lives. How do you navigate that as in a world that still somehow makes mental health such a taboo subject to talk about?
I'm not sure I fully understand your question. Can you ask it again, please?
Sure. So, in terms of having the conversations with such a wide variety of humans, given that we still don't really like to assume that, or like to um, acknowledge that mental health affects such a wide variety of people, how do you navigate those conversations so smoothly with that wide variety of human?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's interesting because like a majority of my audience are millennials and Gen Z, and it's people
Hmm.
who have either struggled with their own mental health or has supported someone or has like a close loved one who has. But honestly, we all have a brain and health ebbs and flows. So actually, like it affects everyone. It's just like invisible. It's not like a physical injury where
Hmm.
you can like visibly see it constantly.
Hmm.
So it's not brought up or talked about as much, but it's you're you're lying to yourself if you're a human. You have a brain, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, I've been diagnosed with a mental illness. Like you might not have experienced like literal depression or like generalized anxiety disorder, like bipolar disorder. But you've had some healthier days. Your brain has seen healthier days. Your brain has seen struggles and some unhealthier days. And you can't get through it alone. I quickly learned that. I used to like pride myself in being super independent, especially in college when I was living like out of the house for the first time and learning a lot of things and learning to cook and like grocery shop on my own and like live by myself. And also like in the US, there's our society touts like independence, like we are
Hmm.
independent, it's so cool to be independent, but as humans we're social creatures, and so we crave connection, and we have to connect with others to survive and thrive, like build on the strengths of others and like help each other. So I quickly learned that I can't do everything myself. It is a-okay to ask for help, and it's actually the way you thrive and become the most successful version of yourself.
I really love that highlight. I think that's such an important highlight. And, when you talk about it being normalized, that independence, like it's definitely something that's normalized over on this side of the world, like in America, right? And in Canada. And even I just recently came back from the UK. However, I'm Maori, and we are a collective culture. And so growing up, it was very normal for me to rely on my family and be supported by my family, and that be something that is really necessary for, mental well-being, but that social well-being aspect that you speak about in terms of like being able to thrive, because we're naturally wired for connection, like as you mentioned. And so I love that you're bringing this conversation into this space, and like acknowledging, right, your own humanity in the process, because I think that's what helps people to trust you, and what helps people to be able to see, okay, well, this person's been through this, right? And so perhaps there's some value in what it is that she's sharing that can
Hmm.
really support me. If there's someone who's listening who perhaps feels like really alone right now, and they feel like they don't have perhaps like a support network, like what do you typically recommend to people? Like what would you suggest to people in terms of like where to start?
That's a good question. Usually, I would recommend reaching out to just like one loved one or someone you feel safe around and talking about your tough feelings, telling them what you're struggling with, because you'd be surprised at how many other people have struggled with similar things or experience the similar feelings. And so it helps you relate, it helps you feel less alone, it helps you get the support you need. But I know you said specifically for folks who feel like they don't have a good support network, I honestly think content like this, like podcasts about mental health and well being, are democratizing information in this subject area. because, and I want to be clear, I'm not a licensed medical professional. I do not work in the field. This is not a replacement for professional mental health care. But I think podcasts and like the way the internet has grown has democratized a lot of information and tools, like specifically for mine, where I have a combination of people I know and their lived experiences and experts sharing wisdom, advice, and tools. It democratizes those tools to people who may not be able to afford therapy because it's
Mm,
expensive sometimes
yeah.
in places. So I think just getting your hands on something like this, like my podcast, your podcast, a similar podcast, will help you learn and feel less alone.
I could not agree with you more on that, especially for those of us who are, maybe work where we're mental health adjacent, right? In the work that we're doing. With Ra, there's so many things that she does that are mental health adjacent. And I think part of that on a human level comes from not just again having the conversation specifically about mental health, but the holistic health of a human being, right? And sorry, I say that all to mean there are concerns, and I've definitely had conversations with people, to your point about democratizing information on podcasts or on social media, etc. There are concerns that I've come across where people have wondered how the best way might be to discern between good information and bad information, especially considering that, we don't necessarily do the best job, especially in the US, when it comes to teaching critical thought. And I think that there's often also a habit of thought that suggests one size fits all, which is also not true. Right. So how do you help people, either your listeners or the people you're talking to, their clients? How would you suggest we ensure that those that are listening can understand how to wade through the crap and find the fertilizer? Which I know that could be the same thing, but two sides of the same coin, right? I don't know. That's my overly glass half full perspective.
Yeah, that's tough. There's a lot of fake news out there, and it's tough. And
Alternative news, I think, is the term that people are using now.
alternative. Okay, alternative news. I mean, in the US, I've stopped watching the news because honestly, it impacts my mental health negatively. It's not really adding to my life, so I try to not watch the news. That's not to say I am on social media a lot and different things pop up. I guess like I follow accounts, like in terms of how I get my news. A lot of times it comes from social media, and I follow accounts that I know are verified and have a backing and are legit companies like Vox. I think it's Vox.com. Pretty sure a coworker and a previous coworker turned me onto this, but they're like a legit media company and they publish a lot of articles on different topics, and they'll post like short blurbs about it, let's say on Instagram, but you can go to their website and you can read their blogs and they cite their sources. So I know that that is a credible source. A lot of social media content is what is it? Subjective and opinion based. So it's like you can follow people that you agree with or you like their point of view, but you don't know if it's 100% authentic. So it is tough to weed through. I would say, like, I guess a sign. I would say that I follow accounts that are verified, and I also like look for verified sources on the internet. I you don't sometimes you don't know like the influencers that you follow, so you can't know 100%, but I like follow and listen to people I trust if that makes sense. Like the more of their content I see, and the thing that helps me as I'm like thinking about it is I think people who are willing to be open-minded to different points of view, different opinions, um, facilitate conversations that aren't, what is it, like narrow in view.
That like confirm their bias, right? Because that's
Yeah.
often what people do is they engage in conversations that confirm their bias and their way of thinking versus actually, am I creating space for
Challenging.
conversations? Yeah. Because I was actually going to challenge your thought process, if you're open to that.
Guys in action.
And because like I do hear what you're saying, like in terms of like it being a legitimate source base and things being cited. However, I am Maori and we have Indigenous ways of working and Indigenous healing, which is typically not science backed and proven. Yet
The results are in the pudding, though.
Yeah, exactly. Like my people have been doing this for centuries, and so like I'm curious to hear your thoughts and like that perspective. Like yes, like I love like that way of thinking, but like say for example, like what does that look like based on your current like wisdom and knowledge, like for people who perhaps are from different cultures, like Chinese and the Chinese medicine system, or even Indian and like that type of thing. So yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
About what does it look like to weed out alternative news and get to the fertilizer in terms of different cultures. Well, I mean, like what you said, proof is in the pudding. So if your people have been practicing a certain type of medicine, but it's not science backed or verified, but all your people are thriving and healthy, like you see that and you're like, oh, I want to be like that. I want to emulate that. I want my health to look like that. So then I would follow that.
Yeah.
It's reminding me of so Ra and I first became friends when we decided to do CrossFit together back in 2013 in New Zealand. She went on to be a CrossFit coach and I went on to become a musician, which is kind of counterproductive, but kind of opposites of the same coin, right? No, but one of the things that we were discussing during one of our coaching sessions was that it takes, on average, and this was, again, 2013, around 50 years for research to become public knowledge. And one of the things that, has changed significantly as the age of technology has steadily progressed and AI is becoming a thing is that, information is now spreading so much quicker than we are sometimes prepared for. And so to your point, Lauren, having these conversations is so important so that we can, shine a light on alternative viewpoints and cultures. And I don't mean alternative in the edgy American way. I'm talking about like literally, what is Ayurvedic medicine and how does that bring value compared to Westernized medicine, et cetera, et cetera. I'm curious from your role as somebody who, I want to go back to one of your first comments, somebody who's found their life purpose. How do you, sort of give yourself the time, the space, the permission to really hone in on who Lauren is, who and what Lauren wants to be and where Lauren wants to go in a world that is either too slow to catch up or too fast to catch up to, and really sort of find that resounding sense of this is my purpose, this is my calling, this is who I want to be, this is how I want to show up for the world, this is how I want to help people, et cetera, et cetera. Like, what was that journey for you? Because I feel like there's a lot of people who just have no idea and we're drowning in information and drowning in overwhelm and drowning in I shoulds. And I always tell my people, like, stop shooting on yourself. But That's just, again, my
love
bizarre sense of humor.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm so glad you asked this question actually, because I fished up a journal. So I have so many journals. I literally have it right here. I've been journaling for years, and I had this journal. I love this. It says, "Wherever you go, go with all of your heart." I like bought it for myself when I first moved to DC in 2022. And literally page 2, because I remember when I was like, I figured out my life purpose. But I've been journaling, like, when I say, like, since I was young, like a really long time. So it's not just like, oh, I picked up a journal the first time and I was like, my life purpose is, like, I was going through a tough time. And I will say, I think therapy has helped too. I think I've been in and out of therapy with different therapists since 2019. So what's that, 6 years now? And I've also learned to take social media breaks, because you're right, like information is flowing at like lightning speed, and you see things and you're like, I should be doing this, right? I should be doing this, but it's not all good for your mental health. And you need silence to really like look inward and reflect and know what it is that you want to do, that you were meant to do, etc. So I've taken a lot of time to reflect in different ways, therapy being one, journaling being one. And I literally wrote down, like, I was going through a depressive episode, a low at this time in the fall of 2022. And I was like, I just have deep thoughts too. I was like, I figured out my life purpose. It's to help to improve the mental health of society as a whole. I can honestly, oh yeah, it makes total sense because I improve people's mental health. That is a fact that I've learned. I have received feedback. This is not me just like being full of myself. I have received feedback in the past that's like, I love your energy. You bring light into my life. You're a joy to be around. And I also enjoy having deep, like vulnerable, meaning conversations. And so it allows people to open up. I create safe spaces, allows people to talk about things, process things themselves, and like work through and be open and vulnerable about their feelings. So I was like journaling and I was like, statistically, suicide rates are so high. Everyone's on some type of anti-anxiety or antidepressant drug. It's bullshit. This is like based on like me living in the US my whole life. And I said, it's amazing how much society has progressed with simply talking about mental health openly, but we need to increase the rate of breaking the stigma to literally save lives. I'm not sure how I'll do this yet. It'll definitely take time to scale, but I'll do it because I always accomplish my goals. And I am a very much goal-oriented person. So every single year I set a certain amount of goals for myself. In the past couple of years, it's been via vision boarding, which I now run vision boarding and intentional goal setting workshops for others. But I love achieving my goals. So I will do anything it takes really to do that.
I love that. It's proactive over reactive, right?
And I love how certain you were in the way that you even phrased it. Like, I will do it. Like, there was so much certainty in that. And even with what you were sharing, like, I think it was great to hear that your purpose kind of came from this really dark space, because there are a lot of people who perhaps like avoid feeling their emotions and do everything that they can to run away from their emotions, when sometimes, and not always, sometimes there can be beauty in that space. Like, as an example, what it is that you just shared. And like, even my book was written in a very similar space to what you are in, which again is quite a fascinating thing. I'm sure Emma can relate, being a musician. Like, some of the best things in terms of art have been created kind of in that space. So yeah, I really loved hearing that story, and even like the highlighting of journaling being a really great process to support people, because my therapist also suggested that when I first started therapy, and that was such a healing process for me, is to kind of get everything that I was thinking out into paper and to process it and really look at, okay, what's factual and what's not, and okay, like, where am I making up a story, and actually, is this true, and really kind of starting to dive into that space as well. So there are so many great things in what you shared. If it comes to like journaling, like, and you mentioned that you've been doing it for some time, right? Like, say for example, someone's listening and they're like new to it, like, what would you recommend based on your experience? If someone's picking up a journal, where would you recommend they start?
It's a good question. I think people are different in their preferences. So I can literally just sit down and write about everything I'm thinking. I write about the good, the bad, the ugly, the in between. And I think it helps, like you said, process your emotions. It's science backed. So when you write out your feelings, it's a form of processing them. And I think it helps with my mental health. So you could just start by doing that, like a flow of consciousness. There's something called morning pages. I forget who coined this. I think it might be an artist, but like morning pages style journaling, where you like set a timer for 5 or 10 minutes in the morning and you just journal your daily stream of consciousness. So you can do that. You can do it physically. I like to buy like cute journals that I think look really nice. So I'm like excited to see them and have them around and open them up and use them. That's me. And I personally like paper and pen. But also with Gen AI tools, I've started to use Claude to do a morning daily stream of consciousness journaling. And I actually got input from a previous coworker and mentor of mine to do this, because he does, and was sharing how he prompts it to give him like any open questions, key takeaways, action items, next steps, high level themes in a bulleted list format. So I prompt it like that every morning. And then it will help me organize my thoughts and my to-dos. And you can also take it a step further and like ask for help with the first draft of an email. Let's say like that's an action item. Like, I got to email so-and-so. Like, you can take it a step further. I haven't done that. I just kind of do it as a part of my daily routine. And I know that I have it in my log in Claude so that I can actually like track my mood and like what I'm thinking about over time. So if I ever wanted to, at the end of like this month, let's say, go back and be like, February, March, April, May. Yeah. How have the past 3 months been since quitting my job? Right? Like, if I wanted to be like, what I need to get a better sense of my mental health and my moods over the past 3 months since quitting my job, and like what is occupying my mind space. And let's say like I wanted to bring it up in therapy next time, I can be more clear, because then I can prompt Claude to do that summary.
I love that. You're blowing my mind a little bit, because I do a similar exercise with my clients, Lauren, where I use the journaling component with my clients to help them get out of their head and onto paper whatever's going on, and then we turn that into a song. And I've started with Gen AI help, incorporating ChatGPT and Claude into helping them take the muck that's in their head, turn that into some kind of song structure, which I then challenge them to put into their own verbiage, their own vocabulary, etc. Because I don't think ChatGPT quite understands what it means to eat these days, but that's a conversation for another day. I love this conversation so much. I can't wait to get further into your Naked Truth podcast. We do unfortunately have to finish up, however, but if people want to get in touch with you, what is the best way?
Great question. So you can follow along on Instagram, is the primary social media platform that I post on for the business. So it's at thenakedtruth.pod. You can also email thenakedtruthpod0@gmail.com. And actually, there's workshops that I've been running I'm thinking about running another virtual vision boarding workshop in the future. So if you're interested, definitely reach out via email, thenakedtruthpod0.com. And then on all other platforms like LinkedIn, I'm just Lauren Roche, Roche.
Love it. Love it. I'm so
Mhm.
excited to maybe, find out more about these workshops and see how we can maybe collaborate in the future and things. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for your time and your insight and your expertise. Thank you to everybody who's been watching. Rawinia, any final notes, my love?
Yeah, I just really loved, everything that you shared. You can tell that you've done a lot of research and a lot of study in this area as well, which is like really great to hear. As you mentioned, kind of in this age of misinformation, it is
Alternative
very
facts. What are you talking
grounded.
about?
Alternative facts. It's really, really grounded. And so I'm really excited for this next stage and this next chapter of your journey, really stepping into your business and, really kind of creating this space and living out your purpose, because I know how exciting that is when you finally step into that. So yeah, I'm excited just to follow along and see how that all goes for you and for everyone involved as well, and the impact.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be a guest on your podcast.
Of course. To everybody at home, be good, be kind, spread love like it's going out of fashion, and we will see you next week.